As usual with our meetup, we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to kind of feel like we're in person, introduce each other, and just say hello and what you do with WordPress. So, it's a good way to get to know each other, even though we're all virtual. So I'm going to try to go through the list vertically as it's showing in my participants list, although as I'm watching it, it's already shifting. So if I miss you, make sure and just raise your hand or unmute at the end there and say hello. But first we'll start off with Elizabeth.
Oh.
Just go ahead and unmute yourself and say hello. All right, maybe Elizabeth's got some. Oh, are you there? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, just say hello, what you do with WordPress, and all that good stuff.
Can you hear me? I'm having tech trouble.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So yeah, hi.
All right. We'll move along then. John C. Unmute yourself, say hello.
Yeah, hey, thanks. This is John. Sorry, I don't have a camera up.
No worries.
For everybody being in the group and inviting me, I guess. And I'm been a web developer starting in like 2005 or something, and then went to Boeing and did a bunch of internal stuff. Then went on my own, did a bunch of HTML, pre-CSS and then CSS, and did hand coding, and then kind of went to Front Page and Adobe and Image Ready, and kind of went through that whole thing and went back to coding. Then I've gone back to kind of the drag and drop Divi, Elementor, and stuff like that, trying to get some work and do some work for some people, and put together a few sites. And don't know if I did myself a disservice by going from the coding to the Elementor and Divi and so on and so forth, but it's definitely been an interesting journey, and so that's a little bit about me.
Cool, sounds good. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Let's jump into Tom. Say hello and let us know what you do with WordPress.
Oh, hi. I'm a front-end developer and working kind of independently right now. So that's what I do with WordPress.
All right, sounds good. All right, Adam, why don't you say hello and what you do with WordPress?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Adam. I'm a front-end developer for Pixeljar. So getting back into the WordPress on the front end, having fun with that. Just love to learn and very excited. The past couple meetings have been a lot of fun with Headless WordPress, and excited to learn more about that stuff.
Cool. Thanks for joining, man. Andy, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy. I've actually been in the insurance industry for the past 7 years, and I'm looking to make a career transition into tech. So I'm new to web development. I know some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but now I'm just getting into WordPress and kind of hoping to go that route, but trying to learn as much as I can and go to as many meetups as I can. So I'm really excited to be here.
Cool. Thanks for joining. Let's see. I think we're at Jim.
Hello, me again, Jim. If you can't tell, I'm an old-time developer. I wrote my first line of code in 1974 and been at it almost ever since. Now I own a software as a service company in the wedding industry. And we are moving all of our sites to WordPress. And like I said earlier, we finally launched, we birthed the first one yesterday, or actually it could have been even today, I don't remember. But the rest of them are going to start falling because we've got 3 of them in the works right now. So they'll start falling real quickly, get them all up and going, get off my old system that's 23 years old, 24 years old, something like that. So
nice.
Having fun.
Very cool. Thanks for joining, Jim. Next, we've got Joe.
Hey, folks. My name's Joe Simpson. I'm here in Castaic, which is in the Santa Clarita area. I'm active in WordPress. I've hosted a couple of WordCamps, and we have a couple of meetups here. During the day, I work at Metro in Los Angeles, a public transit agency. And the past year, after our lead developer left, I've been trying to convince our agency to switch over to WordPress, which they just decided to.
Nice.
But our lead developer is sort of hesitant, about the whole WordPress thing. So she feels that headless is more secure. So we had a Hardy Press installation on a couple of our WordPress sites, but I wanted to see what was more current. So that's why I'm here to check out the presentation.
Sounds great. All right, let's see. I think next up, John D.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm John. I'm from Las Vegas. I used to live in Southern California. I'm a programmer, been programming about 30 years. I specialize in WordPress plugins. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about Headless WordPress. I do a lot of API stuff. I quit my corporate job this year working for Parler. Now I'm freelance again. So nice to see you guys.
Cool. I'm going to go with Pete, number 1. I don't know if Pete's on here.
Okay. Yeah, this is Pete. I have a tech support business, and I do my company website in WordPress.
All right, sounds good. Pete, is the other Pete you also?
Yeah, that's me. I got 2 systems on here in case one craps out.
All right. I like it. Redundant backups for a meetup. That's strong. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go with Steve. I'll say hello.
I'm Steve. That's my son Christian over there.
Hey.
I'll stay quiet most of the time because he's playing on his iPad. I've been doing building customer websites since 2012. I used to do it the old school way, with all the code and stuff, but I got to be honest, I've switched to Elementor past, a couple, 3 years because, are you kidding me? So easy. But this headless stuff is cool. I'm into it. What, I got Siri going or something? I don't know what happened. Anyway, I don't know. But anyway, I'm into this headless because I think it's pretty cool and I want to learn more. Hey, stop doing that, buddy. Anyway, I'm out. I'm distracted.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, man. All right. And before I introduce our speaker, my name is Brandon Dove. I've been running this WordPress meetup for I don't know how long for the developer side of things. But we also have other meetups for WordPress in Orange County area. We have a design focused one. If you're more interested in design, that is the first Monday of the month. We have and we also have a general meetup, which is the 4th Monday of the month. And that's great for, if you're super new to WordPress and you're wanting to, learn about plugins or get help with your specific issue. That's a really great meetup to do that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to join those if that's in your schedule, if you've got that availability. It's a good group of people in this meetup. We've been going since 2009. We've been around for a really long time. We also have a Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook still and you're communicating with folks on there about WordPressy things or wanting to learn more about that, if you search for OC WordPress group, you will find us. It's a closed group. We try to keep a lot of the spammers out, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really great group. If you got questions during the day, in between meetups, things like that, lots of people on there to respond to specific issues or answer questions about recommendations, things like that. So if that's something you're into, definitely join us there, and we'll get you added there. If you do have some specific questions after we're done, if we've still got time, that are not related to the topic at hand tonight, we'll try to get those answered, and have some time just to chat. But other than that, I think we're ready to get kicked off, which is great. So I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker, It is Michal. He's a software engineer on the Frontity team, where he works on the Frontity framework. And his background is in psychology and neuroscience, but he moved from science to tech about 7 years ago with no regrets. And Michal is from Poland, but lives in Lima, Peru, where he enjoys surfing, bouldering, and working on open source. So Michal, if you have anything else you'd like to say, now's a good time. We're going to transition over to you.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much, Brandon.
Sure.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here, to be joining all of you guys to talk about Frontity. Do you mind if I share my screen, or if I start the
No, not at all.
presentation?
Go for it.
I was planning to do the slides as virtual background. So I
Perfect.
think yeah, you can see both me and the slides. Give me a second. Okay. Oh, sorry. It looks like I have to restart Zoom to be able to use that, and I
Okay,
swear
no
I
problem.
tried it out just before, so perhaps my Zoom has just updated, and
Yeah,
I
no
need
problem.
to. It's because of the Mac like security settings. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I'll rejoin.
Sounds great. Just a quick poll, like thumbs up on your thing. How many of you guys have heard of the Frontity framework for WordPress? Yeah. Yeah. When it so when it first came out, I kind of picked it up a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, because I was just starting to learn React, and I was kind of looking at it and going like, I wonder how easy this would be able to drop in place. So at the very, very basics of it, I just kind of like installed it. We had been using, I guess it's called Now, for just JavaScript apps. And so I had posted up there, put up just a domain on it. And within probably half an hour, I had already got it up and running, like from our main Pixel Jar site. Like I was able to connect it with the API, all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of worked. Which was pretty impressive. And pulled in. I didn't do a whole lot of customizing with it, because I didn't have too much React experience at that point. But like just getting it set up was so super easy. I just literally pointed it to our site on WP Engine, and like it just was able to pull in all the content, the blog post content, all that kind of stuff, right into the React framework with really no configuration besides that. Let's see. Any luck, Michal?
Yeah, I think it should work now. And if it doesn't, then I'll just share my screen the old-fashioned way. Let's see. Okay,
all right.
Boom, perfect.
Looking good, perfect. I was just giving my brief experience with Frontity. When I first came out, I saw it through some newsletter or something, and just kind of like to play around with it, I just put it up on a quick JavaScript posting, like with Now, and or with Zeit, I guess. I don't know what it's called. One of those. But I was able to point it to our blog, and it just sort of worked right out of the box. I was pretty impressed.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Yeah. And so I don't want to steal any of your things that you're going to go over, but I think the exciting thing for me, and one of the struggles that I always have with clients with React or headless sites, is there's an inherent loss of the plugin ecosystem, and not like, you really have to build your own integrations for those things into your headless site. And so what I've seen is Frontity has been adopting a lot of packages that support those some popular plugins as people are using. So that's
true.
why I've sort of followed it along and continued with it, because I think the potential for it to be a really strong framework that is really, out of the box, ready to be configured and set up pretty quickly. It's like it has all the promise of that. So anyway, that's my experience with it. And I'll let you kind of take over and actually sound intelligent instead of me just babbling on.
No. I'm really happy that you've had a positive experience, and yeah, that's true that there are some packages that we've sort of we've tried to adapt to work with Frontity. For example, we had a package for Yoast before Yoast supported the REST API natively. So now as of version, I don't want to lie to you. Is it 13 or 14 that came out recently? They support the REST API in their plugin. So we don't have to use that in our plugin. So we don't have to use that Frontity plugin, for instance. But yeah, in general, as a rule of thumb, if a plugin is compatible with the REST API, it will work with Frontity. But yeah, I can explain a bit more perhaps at the end if you still have some more questions. All right, and yes, I'll just go ahead with the talk. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. And once again, I'm Michal Czaplinski. I'm a software engineer at Frontity. And this talk is going to be about Frontity as React for WordPress. But actually, before I go into the talk, I just wanted to mention that I'm actually very happy to be talking to all of you in California, because California kind of has a warm place in my heart, because I've spent 2 semesters there in 2010 in Santa Barbara at UCSB, and it was a really great time. And as a matter of fact, it was there where I've kind of taken the first steps as a programmer. So I've written like my serious first, like you can say, quote unquote, real program. And that was in, whoops. There we go. Slides are working. And that was with NetLogo, which is a little programming environment and a language for making multi-agent simulations. And that's when I took a class called Evolution of Cooperation, which is probably the most interesting class in that at the college, which talked about game theory, evolutionary biology, and in general about how cooperation can evolve between self-interested agents. And I've coded a little simulation of agents playing prisoner's dilemma with each other over many iterations and simulating different outcomes under different circumstances. So from there, I was really hooked on programming, and yeah, a couple of years later, I abandoned. I started a master's in neuroscience, but I've abandoned it at the time. That was in 2011, I believe, or in 2012. And then I'm now at Frontity 10 years later. So the story of Frontity starts, well, a little later. It was 2015, where the two original co-founders, they were working with big Spanish publishers on their WordPress solutions. The founders are from Spain, and still most of the people that work with us are Spanish, so hence the Spanish publishers. And they've been working on solutions for big WordPress publishers in Spain. And whilst working on that, they've created a framework called Frontity Pro, which was a sort of predecessor to the current Frontity. And it was also a JavaScript front-end framework for for working with Headless WordPress with React. And in 2019, the founders decided to open source the framework. I joined the company a little bit later in 2019 as well, and it was around the same time we got invested by Automatic. And now we're fully remote. We're a team of 9 across 4 time zones. So yeah, and we're still we're still growing. So that's in a nutshell about Frontity, the company. But what I really want to talk about is Frontity, the framework. However, before I can talk about the framework itself, I want to give you guys a bit of a background on Headless WordPress. What is it? Why you might want to use Headless WordPress for as your architecture? And given that, I want to move on and talk briefly about React as the JavaScript framework, which is what Frontity is built on top of. And once we're kind of armed with that knowledge, I'll show you a few demos. And the first one will be showing not Frontity, but rather a very, very basic Headless WordPress project built with just pure React and JavaScript. And this will, I've called it DIY Frontity. So this will obviously fail at what it's trying to achieve, but I want to illuminate some aspects of creating a headless front end for WordPress and show some problems, so show some common problems that you would encounter, and finally how Frontity solves those problems, how Frontity deals with them, and well, convince you that it's a good solution to those problems, and show you a demo of Frontity in action, showing some cool features of Frontity. So that's kind of the plan for today. So what is a headless architecture in a nutshell? It's a way of building your apps and your websites in a way that your content editors are still accessing and editing the content in WordPress the traditional way. However, your users are accessing that content using a JavaScript frontend typically, which gets the data from the JSON REST API, and the REST API has been in WordPress for a few years now, and it exposes most of the data that you can access, that you can see in WordPress. So that's a very, very kind of high level overview of the general architecture of headless. Now, why would you want to do it this way? So for me, I think there are 2 major reasons for architecting your app this way, and it's user experience and developer experience. And the user experience refers to something that's nowadays it's called a single page application architecture, or SPA for short. And this refers to a kind of app-like experience that I'm sure all of you have had with websites like Facebook or YouTube, where the application doesn't load all of the data for every page that you navigate to, but just loads all of the content that is needed to display the page on the initial load, and then on every subsequent interaction, on every subsequent navigation to a new page. Let's say when you open a new video on YouTube, just the data that is needed to display that new page is loaded. So this is more efficient because it it avoids a full round trip to the server to get all of the HTML for the whole page again. And it allows this this nicer user experience where just the part of the page that really needs to change will change, whereas, for example, a sidebar that doesn't need to change can stay exactly the same. And building on that pattern or on that architecture, you can also enable things like instant navigation, where which actually is something that Frontity can do, where the data for some of the routes can be preloaded before the user actually navigates to them. So you can do that. You can do that, for example, when the link to a particular page is in the viewport, or you can do it when the user hovers over a link to the next page. There are multiple techniques, but the idea is that you can get that incredibly smooth navigating experience. Well, the second part is the developer experience. And when I say developer experience, I don't just mean that programmers get to like play with nicer toys, which obviously is nice. So we all like you know, the latest like shiny technology, but I think it mostly means that you can write your sites and your apps faster. You can deliver more quality code, and yes, you can use the latest features of JavaScript, of modern. You can use all the modern tool chains, Webpack, Babel, and so on. But the kind of the key points in terms of developer experience for me are can be encapsulated in one word, which is components. So most of the modern UI frameworks, notion of components, and it's a really a fantastic way to build your user interfaces, because every part of your UI, so your header, your sidebar, your card components, they can be created in isolation. They can have their own state, and they can be independent of one another. And this also enables you to create, for instance, reusable component libraries, which is something that many, especially large companies, have started doing. And this emphasis on large companies or big publishers is something that is going to be a bit of a theme throughout this talk, because a lot of the ideas and thinking behind Frontity came from working with big publishers and came out of needs of especially large applications to deal with dealing with large applications from large publishers. So just as one example of a kind of component library from a large publisher, BBC has a component library called SAMED, which they use across many of their websites. And yeah, you can actually go to this link. Oh yeah, you can't see my mouse, can you? Right? No. Well, you can go to the link and check out they have a storybook environment where you can see the components like developed in isolation. And I'm aware that they're not using WordPress, as a matter of fact. They have their own CMS. I forget the name of it. But they are using it in a headless fashion as well. So their application is their applications, the sites are actually isomorphic React applications, where they use React on the front end, on the client and on the server. and they can reuse those components across all of their apps. So given all this talk about headless and creating headless applications, if you've decided to create a headless app, a headless WordPress application, now you have to choose a JavaScript framework. And we've decided to build Frontity on top of React. And I think there are two main reasons for this. The first one would be the components and hooks. Components, which I've already mentioned, reusable pieces of your user interface. And hooks is a concept that was first originally introduced in React. Now many other front-end frameworks have something similar to hooks. In essence, React hooks are reusable pieces of logic, of state and logic. And I don't want to go into too much detail in explaining, because I think explaining React hooks would be a talk of its own. But if you're sort of starting in React, that's a really key part of what makes React well, special, let's say. And I think the second part that spoke in favor of React as a framework is the huge ecosystem of packages that work with React. And I think in scale, it can be compared with the ecosystem of WordPress plugins. So last time I checked, there were almost 150,000 packages on NPM. NPM is the package manager for JavaScript that had the React keyword. So it's huge, and it's I think it's on, when I checked up yesterday or the day before, WordPress has something like 57,000 plugins. So it's obviously it's apples to oranges comparison, but my point is that it plays in the same league in terms of the size of the ecosystem. So now that we've chosen to build a headless application with React, I want to show you what that would look like with just pure pure REST API and React, no framework, and just JavaScript. So I have two small demos for you that I want to share. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Yeah, okay. So I've created a small demo of two little React applications. And in the first one, this is a really basic, really basic React app. I'm using Code Sandbox. This is a kind of like online programming environment where you can you can run your code in, and it's a very basic app, a React application. This one component is the whole application. I promise you. And we're basically just fetching some data from the REST API. This is the URL of the WordPress instance that we're using internally in Frontity for testing, and we're just loading some data from it, storing it in this posts variable, and then mapping over it to display the list of posts. So pretty straightforward. Obviously, this is well, this would be it would be a stretch to call it a headless application already, because, for instance, you might want to click on those article titles to go to the individual post pages, and you cannot do that. And also, if you go to, for example, let's say posts, I happen to know that post 60 is the ID of this post, for example, it will just display the same page, right? So not really a great application, but we can improve on that. So how would we do that? So let's try a second time. And now we have, wait, actually, this was, yeah. So this already looks a little bit better. We have our list of posts, and now we can actually navigate to the individual post. And React will load the data for that post for me. And I can go back to the archive page, and it will show me the archive page. All right. So okay, it's a bit better. How does that work? In this use effect hook, by the way, the use effect is an example of a React hook that I've mentioned previously, and it you can think of it as executing a side effect when that component is rendering. So the effect means a side effect in this context. I don't want to go into too much React details, so just if the React details are a bit unclear, I'm very happy to explain a bit more details in the end. But basically, this effect will fetch some data from the REST API. Now, depending on the path, it will either fetch the data for the post archive, or it will fetch the data for example, for posts 60, let's say. Yeah, because it uses the window location path name to determine from where to fetch that data. Okay, and this last parameter the second parameter to use effect, it will it makes sure that this effect is rerun whenever the link changes. So whenever this changes in our client, yeah, this effect gets rerun and we render new data. But now, because we are fetching either the data for an individual post or for the post archive, we need to render different things to the screen depending on what link it is. If it's just slash, or if it's posts, then we render a list of posts, and if it's matching that regex, that regular expression, posts followed by some digit, then we render individual post page. You'll notice that I've added one more detail to both of those React fragments, and it's this link component. And this link component is basically like a poor man's client-side router. And all that it does is that, I can show you the component below. All that it does is when you click on that link, by the way, it renders an anchor. And when you click on it, it pushes the new route to window history, and then it sets the link to that route. So the set link function informs React that we've changed the link, and it forces the state to be it forces the data to be refetched. But there are a couple of problems. Well, there are a few problems with this whole application. So the first one is that you will notice if I go to any of those posts, let's say this one, look at what will happen here on this part of the screen. So the home button will appear first. And after a slight delay, the post content will be loaded and will be rendered. So this is because we're fetching and rendering the data only on the client. So in order for all that content to appear, the HTML and the JavaScript has to be sent to our browser. It has to be parsed, executed, and only when React starts executing and it runs this effect, only then will it fetch the data. When the data is fetched, ideally, we would like to do something smarter, and this is where server-side rendering comes into play. So you can actually render React components on the server, and this is something that Frontity will and many other frameworks, as a matter of fact, React frameworks will do for you. So Next.js also does that. So this component will be rendered to HTML on the server, and it will send the HTML and JavaScript to the browser, and once the JavaScript has finished executing, it will kind of swap the HTML rendered content with the client-side rendered content. This perhaps the whole explanation of SSR, server-side rendering, is beyond the scope here, but just suffice it to say that it makes this problem well, it solves this problem essentially. Now the second problem that you'll see with our little app here is that we have to manually map UI routes to REST routes, and that means that when we were fetching things from the REST API, we had to check, if the link is a slash, then we fetch from posts. Otherwise, we just fetch whatever is passed in the link. So you have to essentially map between the whatever is in the path name, in your current path name, to the path of the REST API, which are not the same. So you have to do that mapping yourself for any entity that is in your WordPress. Thirdly, you'll see that there's a bit of a repetitive code here already. So you have to map for every type of link. If it's a post archive, or if it's an individual post, you have to render different things. So this will also not scale because you will have different types of content. So this will grow with every type of entity that you have in your WordPress. And finally, there's yet another problem with this app, which is, for example, that this home button, it will not work. And why is that? It's because we're not handling data loading state explicitly. What do I mean by that? When we've loaded, let's reload this. So when we load the page for a post, this data, the data for an individual post, is an object. But the data for the post archive page, and when I mean data, I'm referring to to this data variable. This data will be a list for the post archive page because you have a list of posts. And the problem is that an object does not have a map method, but and React will try to render this as soon as you change the link. So the solution to that would be to add some kind of flag for data for managing the loading state, or something like is loading equals false, and then here in the effect you can set it to true, and so on. So and checking that if is loading is true. So if we're still loading things, then don't try to render anything to the screen because it doesn't make sense. You can or just render like a spinner perhaps. So there's a lot of problems, and I think all of them boil down to and also browser back and forward buttons will work because you would have to listen for the pop state event of the browser, but that's a detail. The bottom line is that we need routing, we need data management, and we need data fetching. We need a solution for all three of those. And luckily, Frontity provides a solution for all of those issues. So you will not have to handle all of those problems that I've just mentioned by yourself. You can use Frontity to help you with all of those. And by the way, is there are there any questions at this point?
I'm not seeing any in the chat.
No. All right. So, all right, then, yeah, so having seen all of that, I will show you guys now how to create a new project with Frontity, and I'll show you a few features of Frontity, kind of referring back to all these examples that have failed just now. All right, so we can create a new Frontity project by just running npx Frontity create. You will need Node installed in order for this to work. And npx is a tool that comes with Node, and it allows you to execute some scripts just on a kind of one-off basis. And it's commonly used for things like creating new projects with some framework. So you can run npx Frontity create and the name of your project. So let's say OC WordPress meetup. All right, and it will download some dependencies. And well, first it will ask you actually what theme you want to use for your project. So Frontity has a concept of themes, which are they're very similar to the concept of themes in WordPress. So you can think of them as basically analogous. And we have a Mars theme, which is like a very basic starter theme, and we also have our own version of 2020 theme with some added bells and whistles. But we're just gonna choose. Oops, we're just gonna choose the Mars theme for now. So this is gonna install all the dependencies for us and clone the relevant project files from GitHub. And yeah, I think it should just take a couple more seconds. All right. You see framework updates. I'm already subscribed to the newsletter, so I'm going to say no. And OK. And you can go to the to this folder and run npx frontity dev, and it will run your project. And it just so happens that I actually already have the project running. So, OK, and you can, well, you can just trust me that this is exactly the same as the project that we have just created. And so this is basically a clean Frontity project at this point. And if you've ever worked with Node or with front-end JavaScript, you will probably recognize some things in that folder. So package.json file, your regular README file. The two things that are probably unfamiliar a little bit are the Frontity settings file, which is analogous to maybe a Next.config.js or a Gatsby config, if you ever use those frameworks. So it's a file where you can define all the state and settings for your application. And the second thing that you might wonder, what is it, is the packages folder. And I'll go into a bit more details about the settings file and the packages in a moment. Just wanted to mention that a Frontity project is basically just a collection of packages, and the Frontity framework itself is a modular framework by design, and it's composed of packages. And this is by design with the aim of being as extensible and as modular as possible. So in fact, your Frontity application has three packages that are absolutely necessary for it to work, which is your theme package, which is local to our project. So it's kind of like your theme in WordPress basically, and two other packages: a source package and a router package. So you might remember I was talking about routing, state management, and data fetching in previously in the little demo. So the WP source package handles data fetching and state management for you, and the tiny router package handles the routing for you. And those are the packages that we develop at Frontity, but as it's a modular framework, you could technically replace them with your own source package or with your own router implementation if you'd like. But yeah, this is a lot of theory. So I think the interesting stuff that you want to see is how all of this actually works. So here I have a Frontity project running on localhost, and this is, yeah, you can see this is actually the same. Yeah, the same project. Where was this? Yeah, running localhost 3000. That's the same project. And one thing that you will notice straight away is that if you navigate to any of those posts, for example, it's available immediately. It loads straight away, and this is because of the pattern that I've mentioned at the beginning of the talk, which is the instant navigation. And in Frontity, Frontity makes it very easy for you to preload the data for particular pages ahead of time. So in this case, we've preloaded all the data for those individual posts on the first page. So for all those 10 posts. So that when you navigate to them, it's instant. And the same for those categories, for example. So category nature, travel, Japan, it loads right away. Okay, but yeah, so how about we make this theme a bit more our own? So this is something that Brandon has kind of hinted at originally. You can point it at your own WordPress instance, and there are good odds that it will actually just work. And unless you have some special configuration, it might just work. So I just wanted to show you that. Are there any James Bond fans like out there in the audience? Yeah, maybe. So I could point it to the official 007 website. And I will have to refresh though. And it actually loads the content from the James Bond's website. From the 007 agent's official website. And again, it's yeah, there wasn't any trickery. So if I go to with the instant navigation, if I go to, let's say, how to drive like James Bond, it loads instantly. So you would expect in a kind of modern front-end framework, we have hot module reloading. We have so for example, if you, let's say we change, maybe we change, yeah, we can change this to make it more Bond black. And you see, I haven't actually refreshed the browser. It got reloaded. It got hot reloaded. So that's pretty cool, I think. But yeah, I want to show you a couple other features. So let's remove all that Bond stuff, and I'm gonna show you how easy it is with a headless WordPress setup and with Frontity specifically to do things like page transitions, for example, which are enabled by this component model of React. So you could, if you wanted to, let's say, yeah, transition between this page and when you load some post page, you want to have a nice kind of fade in or fade out. So you could install a React package, which is called, this is not specific to Frontity. This is a JavaScript package from NPM that works with React, and it provides a lot of animation helpers. It's called Framer Motion. And it's really easy to just add animation with Framer. So we can import motion from, Framer Motion. So now that we've installed that package, it's been added to our package.json file. Okay, it seems like my dependencies were not in the alphabetical order, so they got reshuffled, but I've only just added that one dependency here, actually. And now we can import it in our code, and all that we need to do if we want to add page transitions would be to wrap our app with this motion component. So we do motion. So motion is actually an object, and it exposes components as methods on that object. So we can have a motion div, let's say, and we have to pass some parameters. In React, they're called props to that div. So first one would be the key, which is the thing that we want to react to. So whenever the key changes, we want to trigger that animation. And sort of similarly to how we did it with our crappy demo before, we want to react to the link changes. And in Frontity, it's exposed as state router link. Yeah. And then we just need some, we just need to define some values, an object which defines kind of how you want to animate your components. So animation props, and we can do transition duration, maybe 0.5. And what was it? Transition and duration, initial, yeah, initial. So this is the initial condition for animation, opacity 0, and you want to give it a little like slide from the top. So so maybe y minus 10 and initial and animate. No, is it animate? I think so. Opacity 1 and y 0. Okay. And we pass those animation props in here, and don't make typos. So let's see. Did that work? No. Okay, we did something wrong here. Okay. Import motion. Yeah, that's correct. Transition. Yeah, let's see. Did we? Cannot read property link of undefined. Oh, okay. So this is state. Oh, yeah, typo. State router link. Actually a good moment that Frontity supports TypeScript as a kind of first-class citizen. If you can create your themes and your applications entirely with TypeScript, and this is actually what we did for our own Frontity.org website. And so with TypeScript, I wouldn't have made this error, for example. So yeah, just to let you know. Okay, so now yeah, you can see that we get a little nice fade on navigation, and it took yeah, all of 10 lines of code and, well, a couple typos. And you can do much more powerful stuff with framer motion. There's some. I will leave the link to this demo because it's already on GitHub actually, and there are some other branches which have slightly more advanced animation as well. And the one last thing that I also wanted to show you, and I'm not gonna live code it because I think it would take a little too long, but I have it on a separate branch.
Before you jump into that, Michal,
yeah.
There's a couple questions. I've kind of sort of answered them a little bit, but maybe you have, you definitely have better experience than I do here. So so Jim was asking, this is more for reading your front end data, right? Like your user facing website, rather than creating any back end or admin pages with React, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So okay. Yes.
And then John was asking, so if you have a WordPress site that's already kind of set up and in use, you can use Frontity to actually point and pull data from that existing WordPress site. It doesn't have to be anything specially set up as far as WordPress is concerned, right?
No, so it doesn't require any special setup on the WordPress side. So there are, of course, there are many different ways to set up your WordPress. So for instance, if you show a static page on your I always get mixed up this terminology, but yeah, exactly. And your archive page is somewhere else. It's like maybe at, I don't know, /news.
Yeah.
You have to tell Frontity about it in this Frontity settings file. So it's, of course, it's all documented in our docs. So yeah, go ahead and check them out. I
will give you guys props too. When I first used this, I think I picked it up like the first week it was actually released, before it went public or actual 1.0 release. And the documentation you guys had was already great, which, for a developer is great. And, is not always what you find when you're looking at WordPress plugins or themes or anything like that. So kudos to you guys for having documentation up there.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear. And yeah, we're working on improving it more and more. So there's Juanma and Michael from our DevRel team are actually working on revamping the documentation completely, and in the first months of next year.
Nice.
So yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah. Okay, couple other questions. John T was also asking, so as far as performance goes, load times is what was improved, and as well as would security be also an improvement there?
Sure. So I actually, before I jump into that question, I wanted to go back to the one that you've asked before about the admin pages.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're talking about admin pages as as in like extending the admin panel of WordPress, that's that is not possible. But if there's any data, basically any data that you choose to expose via the REST API, you can render it and you can create pages for it with Frontity.
Okay.
So that's kind of a general answer. And about performance and security. So yeah, performance is on our mind 100%. So performance is, of course, is a tricky subject. It's a long subject. We're absolutely optimized to have the best performance possible, and it's likely that you will see a performance benefit if you use Frontity, but there are there are so many buts and ifs to it.
Sure.
I think probably the largest performance benefit that you might see with a WordPress site, headless or traditional, is from using a CDN. And you definitely should use a CDN for all of your content. And that said, maybe I don't want to get into all of those details, but yeah, the point is that the performance is very good with Frontity, and I think what is more important is that the user experience is fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds very immodest when when I say that, but I think it's really good.
Sure. Okay, cool. I think the last question.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention. Yeah, security. So it depends, because there are some security benefits to using Frontity, which is that you only use the data that is exposed through the REST API, and for some sites you can so basically I guess my point is that the Frontity application itself is as secure as it can be, because you would typically run it in a serverless environment which is a short-lived function that runs on cloud hardware, and it's not really hackable to access your Frontity application that runs in a serverless function on Vercel. Like you've used it, for example, or you can use it on Firebase, Netlify, what have you. With respect to your WordPress server, there aren't any significant benefits to security. You might get some security benefits with, for example, I think a lot of people are attracted to a static site generation approach, like with Gatsby, because you can pre-render all your pages or your pages ahead of time, and they're just going to be static files. And you can lock down your WordPress, and it will be completely secure. Yeah, but that you can also do. So I think that's really nice feature of static site generation approach. You can do pretty much the same with Frontity. If your WordPress just returns static HTML files, you can use I believe there's a plugin which allows you to do the same thing with WordPress, which will give you essentially the same benefit when using Frontity. That's kind of the longer answer.
Okay. Yeah, and we have had a couple talks that have touched on Gatsby prior to this one, and so that was one of the questions I was going to ask is, since those are more static file generation, you're dealing here with Frontity with more live data that's being pulled directly from the API at request time.
Yeah.
It's not something that, when you make a change with Gatsby or something like that, you have to wait for that to build out. You have to, sit as a developer. When you push publish, it may actually be a, 10, 20, 30, depending on how large your site is, an hour-long build time before that actually goes public, because it's waiting on that build time of those static files, versus Frontity. As soon as it's published in WordPress, it's immediately available because you're pulling from the REST API directly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. So this is something that we've also been mentioning publicly, that there are benefits to static site generation, but the build times are definitely something that you might have to deal with, and especially if you use a CDN, you can get the same benefits of static site generation with a CDN. So your content is not, so you can think of it as in terms of where your data is cached. So if you use static site generation, your data is built and it's cached wherever you build it, and then you invalidate that cache every time you change your content. Whereas with a CDN, you can have a more granular approach, and you can invalidate just a single page when you've updated that content. And this is actually the approach that we recommend. We currently recommend users to deploy with Vercel because they support something called stale while revalidate, which is a feature of their CDN. They're not the only one who offers that, but it basically allows, and it sets this up. So Vercel sets this up for their users automatically. And what it does is it allows you to serve the stale content to the user, and in the background it will revalidate. So when a request comes in for that piece of content, in the background it will revalidate it, and for the next user that requests that, let's say, particular page, it will serve the fresh content.
Right.
Yeah. So we're very much what's the word? Yeah, we very much are in favor of using CDN over static site generation.
Files. Yeah. Okay, and the last question, which you may be touching on, so this may lead you in, but is how you style the page that Frontity shows. You kind of tweaked a little bit as you were going through your demo, but I don't know if that's something you can touch on as well.
Sure, yes. So I have not actually mentioned that very much. So we use, Frontity comes with the emotion styling library baked in. It's not a fork. We just ship it together with Frontity, and it's the default way of styling components with Frontity. And the reason for that is that we can kind of when we decided on the styling solution, so we're thinking of, well, should we go with CSS and JS? Should we, what kind of styling should we support? And the idea here is that we kind of want to guide developers into this pit of success. And with CSS and JS, with emotion, we can enable, for example, what's the word? Well, erasing all the unused CSS from your bundle. So any CSS that you're not using, so any styled components that you're not using, they will not increase your bundle size, which is something that it's not possible with just classic CSS. So it gives you the best performance possible when you write CSS this way. And I think CSS and JS is in general, it's a larger topic. I'm very much in favor personally, and I think especially for the component era, CSS and JS is a really good fit. But I know people have different opinions about that. But yeah, it's the way to style components with the style content with Frontity.
Okay, so you would have, like, what you're looking at here is some CSS that you've developed and applied to specific components through JavaScript, rather than having a separate CSS file that you might be used to in WordPress. Yeah,
that's right. So this way, exactly. So we don't actually support for example, we don't support Sass or CSS, and we don't support like external CSS files. If you really do need global styles, there's an escape hatch. So it's not like we say, okay, you can never use global styles. I mean, you sometimes have to, but you can do something like this. So you can define your global styles, and they are passed to a global component. Okay. So this is a part of the emotion API of the CSS and JS library.
Okay. And as far as like modifying markup / layout, and this gets into more of the React stuff, so we don't have to go too deep here. Yeah. But so there's obviously some of the structure you have here is under the hood, or using JSX for a lot of the markup there. That's right. Okay. So a lot of the things, you may be wondering, if you're watching, like, what is a main thing? There's not like an HTML entity that's like that. So these are the component names, and they have baked in markup that's rendered out when it's called. So those are within that Mars theme folder, right?
Yes.
And so if you were going to create your own sort of Frontity theme, you can do that utilizing sort of this framework that they have with the Mars theme to make your own version of that, as customized as you want to still include all of the nice things that Frontity has for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see many users kind of building on top of Mars theme. Some of them using the 2020 package, and some of them, I think it's about like 1/3 of each. And some of them are, there are a couple other themes that we've also created. We've created a theme with the Chakra UI framework. But yeah, many users also just go from scratch, and you can yeah, I can actually show you. Maybe I can show you. So you can, inside of your packages folder, you can actually create a new package, which would be a different theme, and it could live inside of the same same project. So let's say if you would have, this is actually something that we do in our Frontity.org site. You could have a Frontity multi-site, WordPress and Frontity multi-site project, and you could have one theme on one of the sites and another theme on another site. So for example, we have a custom theme on Frontity.org, and our blog is using 2020. Okay. And they're all, and it's a WordPress multi-site.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, a couple more questions popped in. Sorry. But Tom was asking about handling internal linking from the content. Obviously, if you're writing a blog post, you know, it's going to be referencing the main domain name. So with this, you know, separately hosted JavaScript site, how does it sort of interlink or translate those?
Yeah. So yes, sure. So we, if you have internal links in your content, which are, I mean, if they're relative links, they should just work. If they're absolute links, we have there's a concept in Frontity called processors. So I've maybe I've shown. Yeah, I don't think I've mentioned this. So there's a Frontity package called HTML2 React, which is not required to use Frontity, but what it does is whenever you pass some content to, let's see if I can show you it. Show this to you in a component, maybe in the menu. No, in the post page, right? No, list item, yeah. And the title. There we go. No. Okay, I won't look for it, but the idea that I'm trying to get at is that this HTML to React package, when you pass content to your React components using this this dangerously set inner HTML. The HTML to React package exposes a component which, while you pass that content, it can do some transformation on it. And we have a number of so-called processors which run over that content, and one of them is just so happens to transform the links inside of your content to the correct format. And because we know in your Frontity settings, you have to specify the URL, which is the URL of your WordPress instance. So this is where your backend is, and this is the URL of where your front end will be hosted. Now, this is there are more details that I could go into because Frontity can run in different modes. There's a so-called decoupled mode and an embedded mode, and in an embedded mode they would be the same. In a decoupled mode, which is what I've been mostly talking about now. So this would be let's say test frontity.org, and this would be I don't know, like Vercel, site.com, yeah, something like that, hosted on Vercel or on Netlify.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, but because we know this URL, we can transform those links in the content.
Cool. I think that is all the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you said you had one more thing to show there.
Yes, I do. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to show you guys. And yeah, I will discard all those changes for now. And yeah, I'm just I want to show you how, for example, you would add an infinite scroll to Frontity, and that it's also it's something that I think, kind of like the page transitions, it might be a bit tricky to do with kind of traditional WordPress, but it's much easier with Frontity. And okay, I will actually maybe I'll just show you the changes that were actually required to. So this it's just some changes in one of the files, and so just to show you what has actually changed, it's about, I don't know, 30 lines of code, I believe. Yeah, exactly 30, and one additional dependency. Okay, and what has changed is that in, I'm sorry, that's not it. Oh yeah, that's it. That's here in the list, right? So because the list is our list of all the components. So, well, I think. Oh right, but I haven't actually installed it. So I've added it in the package JSON, but I haven't installed it. So npm install from. Oh, actually, I can just do npm install. Okay. And oh, oops. Oh, that's a bit embarrassing.
Not to worry, they're used to seeing me break my sites all the time.
Let's see. No issue on the server. Load of components failed to synchronously load component, which is expected to be available. Okay. Okay. And this, I think I might have to restart the server now that I've changed the branches, because I have seen this error before. Because I did import it correctly. Yeah, okay. So well, you can just go to home. Yeah, so yeah, you'll see that I can scroll down to about, yeah, like almost like 3/4 of the page, and if you look at the scroll bar, the following posts have already loaded, so I can keep scrolling, and in fact the URL bar will update. So now we're on the page. We're on the page 2, and if I keep scrolling a bit more, I'm gonna get to page 3 now, and I think page 3 is it's still fetching. Okay, do I have a network error? No. So I think I've, oh, come on. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, come on. So perhaps I've borked something in my demo, but I'm pretty sure I've yeah, okay. Yeah, this is what we should actually see. So there's so we've in our code we've actually limited it to 3 pages, and after the 3rd page you click see more and you can load more data, and this is enabled by React hooks. So the React hooks actually enable you to write your own. So using the React hooks, you can write your own hooks, which are these kind of reusable pieces of logic, and you can reuse this use archive infinite scroll hook in any theme, basically. So this is used, I believe, on it was written actually by a freelancer that works for one of the clients one of his clients that's using Frontity, and who used to work with Frontity a couple years ago, I believe. And yeah, and it works in any Frontity theme. And yeah, the kind of the interesting part of the data that has changed is this. So it's about 20 lines of code that really had to change.
Awesome. That is not an easy problem to solve with WordPress.
Yeah.
Many more lines of code are required usually. Okay, great.
Yeah, and so yeah, just so yeah, this was that's what I wanted to show you in the demo, and just to go real quick to the slides, just to kind of recap. Okay, this is from the beginning. Yeah, I'm happy. I'll post the link to the demo and to the slides in the chat, by the way, just if anyone's interested to take another look. And yeah, just kind of to recap what I've been talking about. I think the important features of Frontity is that it will work with your current WordPress backend, and it will handle that data fetching, state management, and routing for you, and as well as server-side rendering. So all the pages that you've seen in the demo, they're rendered first on the server, and then hydrated on the client. And the last thing that I think I've just slightly touched upon in the demo is the extensibility of Frontity. And I've mentioned that everything is a package in Frontity. So the router, the source package is a package, and the framework itself is composed of packages. And the philosophy behind Frontity is to allow the user to write their own package or install third-party packages in a fashion that's kind of similar to how you would extend WordPress with WordPress plugins. So you can think of Frontity packages as WordPress, they're like WordPress plugins. And that's it. So thank you guys very much. Yeah, I'm Michal Czaplinski, and go check out the Frontity website, go check out the docs, and I'd be super happy to hear on Twitter about your experience with Frontity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michal. I appreciate it. I know it's late for you. It's late for some of our other attendees as well. And we're wrapping up here at the end. But if anybody else has any questions while we're all here together, feel free to unmute yourself and just go ahead and vocalize the question. Otherwise, we'll get wrapped up here. We've got about 5 minutes to answer questions.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for for having me.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
have a question, but I definitely have a comment that whilst you were giving your presentation, I mentioned it to Brendan that I spent 10 minutes maybe installing, setting it up, and now playing with it on my local browser. It just went in and worked, and it works very fast and very nice. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I just saw your comment actually. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm super happy to hear. Yeah. So yeah, do let us know or do let me know on Twitter if you yeah, what your impressions are, good or bad.
Cool. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Any more thoughts or comments or questions?
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time, especially given your time zone and ours.
Yeah, it's not that late here yet. Yeah.
I saw like the just the time ticking away in the top corner of your bar, and I was like, oh yeah, that kept reminding me you're a few hours later. But yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time. I've been wanting to have. I've been talking to Reyes about having somebody kind of present and stuff for the meetup for a long time. So I'm glad to finally get you on and share what you guys are doing. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, yeah, really happy to be here, and yeah, and I'll be really happy to hear if yeah from any of you after you've tried Frontity, if you what was your experience, and yeah, and yeah, you can go and check out by the way, our community at community Frontity communityfrontity.org. We're very responsive on there every day. So just if you just want to like share some impressions or just say hi, yeah, just feel free to stop by.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks everybody. We're gonna cut it off there, and I will post the video up probably tomorrow because it's getting late here. But we'll get it up there, and definitely let us know all your feedback. All right. Thanks everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. Good night.